Welcome back to Curry Crew. Today we have another delicious recipe. Today we're going to be making a delicious, creamy, cheesy Chipotle Penne, and it's going to be out of this world. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into our recipe. So guys, for our dish, we are going to be making a delicious pasta recipe, but influenced with some Latin American, Mexican fusion flavors. So it's going to be a little bit cheesy, a little bit creamy, but also have those little Chipotle spices and things like that in there. So we're going to get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our protein. Now for this dish, you can use chicken or shrimp or something like that. However, I've opted for paneer. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with paneer, paneer is essentially Indian cottage cheese, a little bit different than your normal cottage cheese. It's not as runny or anything like that. It's a little bit more hard. And for other people who might not know what it is, it's kind of like the Indian equivalent of tofu, but in my opinion, it is a lot better than tofu. Now, for those of you who've never had paneer, I highly recommend you try it out. But if you have, I'm sure most of you are going to agree with me that paneer is delicious and really a great complement in almost any dish. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut up our paneer into little cubes, and this paneer we're going to put it into a large mixing bowl. The reason being is we're going to use this paneer and we're going to marinate it a little bit before we eventually cook it and grill it up. By marinating it a little bit, it's gonna make the paneer a little bit more tender, and it's gonna help it absorb some of the seasonings that we're gonna be adding to it. Paneer is a great vegetarian alternative for those who don't eat meat. So, you know, where you might use tofu in dishes, you can use paneer in those dishes as well. It is definitely one of my favorites. I often will even use it in place of tofu when it comes to certain dishes, whether it's ramen or some different types of Chinese inspired dishes that I'm trying to make, just because I like the firmness of paneer a little bit more than what tofu kind of gives you. And the great thing about paneer is that it can absorb a variety of different flavors that you season it with. So on its own, it's relatively bland, but the great thing about it is it can absorb whatever spices you add into it. So now what we're gonna do with our paneer is we're gonna add in lemon juice from about half a lemon. And just make sure you don't have any seeds falling into your mixing bowl. Okay, then into our mixing bowl, we're gonna add in a pinch of black pepper. About half a teaspoon worth. We're also gonna add in about half a teaspoon worth of salt. Then I'm going to add in a pinch of garlic powder, a pinch of onion powder, and a little bit of Chipotle chili powder. Not too much, but just a little bit, just so that it gives it a little bit of a kick. Now, give it all a nice mix. And we're just giving it a little bit of a toss to coat our paneer in the seasoning. Okay, now we're gonna set this aside until we prep all of our other ingredients. So, first things first, we're gonna take 4 cloves of garlic and we're gonna peel them. Okay. And we're just gonna give it a quick chop, very rough, nothing like too fancy or anything like that. Next, we're gonna take some bell peppers. Now I'm using these mini peppers. They're nice and colorful. You could obviously use a full bell pepper if you have it. So I would just take one green or red and one yellow or green. Basically you wanna use about 2 bell peppers just use, different colors. It brings a nice little bit of vibrancy to your dish. And it adds a little bit of contrast in the colors. Now the great thing about the mini ones is, for the most part, most of them don't have seeds on the inside, so you don't have to worry about like de-seeding them or anything like that. You can just essentially cut off the tops and then go straight into chopping them. That's why I like to use the mini ones. Plus with the mini ones you get more color options and things like that. But for today I'm just going with 2 colors. For now, let's set our peppers aside in a nice bowl. Get rid of some of our trash. Sometimes people say that like, oh, I don't like cooking because there's a lot of cleanup after and things like that. But the one thing I've learned throughout the years is if you clean up while you're cooking, like clean as you go, it makes it a lot easier in the end. So if you're done with cutting some veggies, throw away the trash. If you're done using some spices, put them back in your spice cabinet before you move on to the next step. This way, by the time you're done cooking, you have very few things that you have to put away. And it makes it a lot easier at the end. Okay, next we're gonna take a onion. Now I'm only gonna use half of this onion because it's gigantic. But if you have smaller onions, then you can use 1 small onion. You could even use shallots if you want. They're smaller, give a little bit of a sweeter taste. So you can use those as well. But I'm going with a red onion because they add a little bit of, this little bite to your dish. Now I'm not gonna dice the onion, I'm gonna keep it in these like little bit of a large slice, just because for this dish we want our onion to have, bite-sized pieces and larger slices. However, if you were obviously making like a sauce or something like that, you would cut it into a dice, because that way you have smaller pieces and easier to make a sauce with. So again, we're only using half. Next, we're gonna take 2 tablespoons of butter and just heat it up in a pan. And while we wait for our pan to heat up and for our butter to melt, we're gonna just clean up some of the other stuff. Yep, so now we're just waiting for our butter to melt down a little bit. So our butter has melted. We're gonna let it get a little bit nice and frothy. That's how you know your butter is come up to temperature. We don't want it to burn, so you don't want to do it too much. But just let it get a little bit frothy so that once we add in our veggies into the pan, it can sizzle a little bit more than just sitting there in butter and soaking up butter. We want it to cook and sizzle in the butter, not just absorb all the butter. Okay, so now you can see it's starting to froth up a little bit. It's getting nice and bubbly. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna add in our garlic. Let the garlic saute for about 30 seconds, not even too much. And then we're gonna also add in our onions. So we're gonna be cooking our onions until they become a little bit translucent, transparent. So as you can see, they're already starting to get there a little bit. So we're not gonna cook them too much. We don't want them to become like overly jammy or soft, but we do want them to become a little bit cooked. Now we're gonna add in our peppers. Give it all a nice mix. And we're just gonna saute this for another minute or so. Not too much. We don't want to overcook the onions and peppers and make them all like mushy. But we do want them to get a little bit cooked throughout. And just make sure you're stirring in between. You don't want your veggies to stick to the bottom of the pan and burn. So you just want to make sure that in between you just give them a nice little quick stir to ensure that nothing is sticking and everything is cooking evenly and properly. Okay, at this point our veggies are pretty much done. So we're just gonna remove them from the heat and take them out in a bowl. And we're just gonna set these aside for now. Now into our pan, we're gonna add in about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil and allow the oil to heat up. In the meanwhile, we have water bubbling away a little bit, coming up to a boil here. This is where we're gonna cook our pasta. So we want our water to come up to a boil. So you want to just keep it covered with a lid, help it get to a boil faster. Now our oil seems to be heating up nicely. So now what we're gonna do is into our oil, we're gonna add in our marinated paneer. And we're just gonna give the paneer a nice saute until it becomes a little bit, you know, golden brown all around. So just let it keep sizzling away. We're gonna cook our paneer for about 5-10 minutes until it is nice and golden on all sides. And then what we'll do is into our pan, we will re-add in all of our veggies and then start making the rest of our sauce, which includes adding in our chipotle, pepper paste, our heavy cream, cheese, things like that. But for now, we're just gonna let the paneer cook. Okay, so our paneer is pretty much done. I'm going to take it out of the pan and put it essentially with our veggies, because later on we're gonna add all of them in together. And now we're gonna lower the heat of our pan, allow it to cool down a little bit before we move on to making our sauce. Now our water is essentially bubbling for our pasta. So we're gonna use about 14 to 15 ounces of penne, or roughly basically about a pound. And we're gonna add that into our water. And now we're just gonna let it cook for about 8 minutes. You know, you wanna make it al dente, you don't wanna overdo it. So let it just cook according to the box instructions. Now for our pan, we have it cooled down a little bit. Still somewhat hot. But what we're gonna do into this is we're gonna add in 2 tablespoons of adobo chili pepper paste. These are basically made from Chipotle chilies, and we're just gonna add in 2 tablespoons into our pan. Okay, and now into this we're gonna add in 2 cups of heavy cream. But we're gonna do it a little bit at a time while mixing so that it blends evenly with the chili paste that's in there. Then into this, we're gonna add in a little bit of regular chili powder, a little bit of onion powder, a little bit of cumin, and a little bit of garlic powder. We're also gonna add in a pinch of cayenne, as well as about half a teaspoon of red chili flakes. Okay, then into our sauce, we're gonna add in 3 ounces of Parmesan. Okay, and in our sauce, we're just gonna give it a quick whisk to make sure there's no lumps of Parmesan or anything like that on the bottom. We're gonna take some of our pasta water, and we're gonna save it so that we can use it for other things, and then we're gonna drain our our penne is gonna go into our sauce. And then into this, we're also gonna add in our veggies and our paneer from earlier. Give it all a nice mix. We're also gonna add in a little bit of the pasta water. It's gonna help bind everything together. Last but not least, I have some fresh pepper jack cheese that we're gonna grate into our pasta. And you want about 3 ounces of your pepper jack in your dish. We're gonna top it off with a few more red chili flakes. Otherwise, our creamy Chipotle penne is pretty much done. We're ready to serve, ready to taste, ready to dig in. So I don't know about you guys, I know I could plate this all up and make it look nice and fancy, but I want to taste it while it's nice and hot. So I am going to do just that. Grab a piece of paneer, some pepper, pasta. Oh man. They're so delicious, guys. It is creamy, it is cheesy, it is a little bit spicy, it has a little bit of that smokiness from our adobo pepper. It is so delicious, and it is super easy to make. You know, we didn't do much besides sauteing some veggies, sauteing some paneer, things like that. You know, we have our delicious smokiness from our adobo paste. Everything is coming together so nicely that it's really a cohesive, perfect dish. So you guys definitely need to try this out for yourselves, because I know once you try it out and taste it, you're gonna fall in love. So let us know how much you love this recipe. You know, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and keep on cooking.